Got 6:30.
We'll call this meeting to order for USD 348 Board of Education. At this time, I'd invite you to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Welcome, everyone. And just as a reminder, no executive session at the beginning, so we're just going to cannonball right into the flow of the meeting. All right. May I have an approval of the agenda, please?
Second.
Phil has moved and Tony has seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, organizational items. First up, we have parent, family, and community engagement opportunities, and that means it's site council time. You guys can fight over who gets to go first, or you can go in building order. Derek, would you like to go first? We'll start with the junior high, and we'll hop around. That way everybody really has to pay close attention. That'd be perfect. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. At the junior high, we do have a site council that meets quarterly. On that council, I try to make sure we have at least 2 representatives from each grade level. So tonight, I'm here to advertise to anybody at home listening that we have a spot that we're looking to fill for our 6th grade site council position. We try to generally have these over lunch, so we'll feed you homestead when you come in, and I try to put some different people from our faculty in front of you so that you get an idea of who's there in our building that's helping us achieve our different goals. But I hope some parent out there is hearing this at home and thinking, hey, I've got a 6th grader at the junior high and I'd like to be part of that. If so, just reach out to the junior high. You can call us tomorrow in the front office and we'll get back with them.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much. In need of 6th grade parents. Mr. Wall-Smith, would you like to go next? Principal King?
Yes.
You can come together.
So we do share in the intermediate and primary center, we share a site council. It's also combined as the PTO. They do double duty. We actually have gained a lot of members, but we're always taking more. So you're always welcome to join our site council. We do all of our site council business first. A lot of the meetings are done remotely, so you can do it from work or from home.
We've had some shift in positions too of who've taken over some of the main leads. So some new parents that have started this year kind of taken over us. So Travis and who's the other one? Talina.
So we've got a lot of new families taking over.
Great. Thank you for sharing the information. Mr. Brittingham, high school?
I got an early jump on all of this. I had already sent out information to correspondence to the entire high school, basically asking for people that might want to be on site council. And so we'd set some tentative dates, October 5th, December 7th, February 1st or February 8th, and then May 3rd. I shared all that information with you. I've corrected the document, Kelly. I have your last name spelled correctly now on there, okay? And I also have Carly with a K. Thank you. So please don't take offense to that. Normally, when I send out information, I get usually about 12 people that commit. And so far, I'm up to about 16 members, which will be the most that we have, and probably 8 to 10 other people that said they would like to serve on that committee. And then I've got 4 to 5 teachers that have committed for the year. And so I first initially sent out one email just to get a jump on it and get it situated. So I've kind of already given people that opportunity via email. But certainly if there's somebody that felt strongly about it, I really don't have an issue. We want to get people in and get their feedback, but also some of the conversations that we have, I don't mind having with anybody, quite frankly. And we've tried to, about 2 weeks prior, to get information out to site council in terms of agenda items. And then starting last year, based on their input, we kind of started sharing the agendas approximately 48 hours prior to the meeting.
Great.
So,
thank you very much. All right. And also just for our district site council, that's still in the process of being put together. And Ashley's is going to be chairing that. Thank you for doing that. And I want to just provide full disclosure. We have always approved our district site councils. Just so the board knows, the policy says that we are supposed to officially approve all site councils. I'm not going to talk about what before I was president in 2020. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Approving individual school site councils was not even on the top 20 list of things I was tracking. And because there was so much movement in flux during the last 2 years of who could do it, who couldn't, there was a lot of movement on those. So occasionally when it did pop in my mind, I thought, how would we even do that? But it is in our policy. So once those get a little more formulated, I know the high schools is already done. But when in September, we'll circle back once those groups have become a little more cemented so that we can provide a formal policy approval for that. So in no way is any of that the principal's fault. That's my fault for the past 2 years of not doing that piece. So I want to make sure and cover that. Any other announcements? Nikki Manbeck actually asked me to make an announcement. Our local newspaper has an entire section that was sponsored that is specifically for USD 348 events or announcements or news. So she asked me to let administration know if there's ever a story, a highlight, something that you want to submit. She welcomes that. It is not a nuisance. She would absolutely appreciate that, as there's an entire section of the newspaper devoted to that now. So I said I would share that.
Can you say that name again?
Nikki Manbeck is her name. And that's our local Baldwin paper.
How often is that published?
Every week.
Okay.
Yes. And there was one other thing. I was hoping Gary was going to be here so I could talk to our athletic director, Gary Stavanis. But we do have a brand new, our high school booster club has a brand new Bulldog of the Month fan program. You're going to be seeing information about that. Melissa McGill, who is a secretary at the junior high, also a member of Booster Club, has really championed that. But there's going to be a lot of opportunities for kids to be to walk out at the games and have more opportunities for more relationships with older kids and all the mentoring and coolness that goes along with that. So be watching for that information, and perhaps we can get a more thorough announcement to that effect next month.
Did you say Melissa Alford?
Oh, that's what I meant. I said McGill. I'm sorry.
She's heading it.
Yes. Yep. And she's going to be, thank you for correcting me. Yeah, there's an email with the sign up genius. It's going to be amazing. And it's for all the sports. If you are a fan of tennis, you can do that. If you are a fan of the football game, it's going to be really cool, but more information to come. So definitely wanted to put that out there. Okay. Any other announcements from anybody else? All right. Next, item C is the consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval? Thanks, Tony. Tony has moved and Chris has seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, it is recognition time. First of all, I want to say welcome to all of our guests. Thank you for being here. We have such amazing students, and they don't just do amazing things during the school year. You're going to see a really neat cross-section tonight in our presentation of the extraordinary things our students have been doing even over the summertime. And so with the first recognition, Finn Kennedy, could you come on up, please? Thank you for coming in uniform too. That's so cool. Good evening. So Finn here earned his Eagle Scout this summer, and I had a cousin do this not too long ago. Remind me, is it 21 merit badges that you have to?
Something like that.
It's a bunch. In addition to this capstone project, along with all of the examples of leadership and service that you have to demonstrate to even be qualified. I'm thinking, I was looking at this earlier today, and I think only 4% of Boy Scouts ever earned their Eagle. Is that right?
It's a pretty small amount, I think. It's
very small amount.
Yeah,
yes.
It's pretty hard.
It's a really hard thing to do. So it's not just I want to get this Eagle Scout distinction. It's years and years of commitment and work. And then this capstone project, which was benches for the pool.
Yeah, benches for the Baldwin City pool.
Awesome. And when did you put those in?
July, like early July.
Yep.
something like that.
And I'm sure that was very appreciated. And we want to
Yeah.
congratulate you.
Thank you.
We have an official certificate to read to you, but I did want to take a moment just to kind of give some of those stats because it's a really big deal. And again, our students aren't just doing these amazing things during the school year in addition to the things they're already involved in. Those things carry through the summer, and we definitely wanted to make a point to recognize you and your efforts
Thank
with that, okay? So the Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities and as a representative of your school in our community. So on this day, August 22nd, 2022, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Finn Kennedy for your Eagle Scout project for the Baldwin City Pool.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to congratulate you. All right, next was a beautiful and multifaceted coordination of a mural. The mural projects that have been going on in Baldwin have involved several different entities. At this time, I'd like to call Ainsley Weiss up here so we can talk about what she did over the summer. I love your shirt, by the way. Hi. So the mural that Ainsley apprenticed with is called A Tour of History and Charm. And if you want to see this, they had a ribbon cut, you understand me? Yeah, thank you. A ribbon cutting ceremony at the chamber office where the mural is located. And it's so cool. I mean, it's so amazing. And so Ainsley applied and then was able to be an apprentice for this project. And I have to say, over the years, a lot of people have said, hey, how do you know when kids are doing what they're supposed to be doing? And like, there's this, first of all, watch what they do in their free time, and then watch for the glow. And I have to tell you, when I came, I know I was only there for like 5 minutes because I had to go somewhere else, but you had that purpose glow that night. You really did. And so we wanted to make sure and recognize you this evening. So the Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So on this day, August 22nd, 2022, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Ainsley Weiss for a tour of history and charm, art apprentice at the Chamber. Congratulations. All right. A squad from our cheer team. If anyone is here, you can come on. Are you the lone representative? No, I see. Okay. Come on up. Come on up. Speaking of more awesomeness that happened over the summer, our cheer team went to a camp, and the ladies here you see, except for we're missing Malin. We're missing Malin. They all earned the NCAA Camp All-American distinction, which, so in addition to all the things they're doing at camp, then they got this special, you guys want to tell, what do you have to do to become an All-American? I know how this works a little bit better in dance, but tell us about the cheer.
You have to do like a series of jumps for it, and then you have to learn cheer and perform that cheer in front of all your teammates and the NCAA staff, and then whatever tumbling skills you have, and then he votes on it, and yeah, that's how it happens.
That is awesome. I'm very grateful for Baldwin Bulldog Bulletin Online because it gives, it does such a good job of giving all that information. But we also wanted to make sure and congratulate you guys because you're representing your team and your school when you commit your time to do stuff like that. And we understand that is a part of what makes games fun, but it's not just showing up at the games and cheering for the other people. It really is a commitment of physical discipline. You guys put in a lot of hours, and we wanted to make sure that you guys know that we see that and we appreciate it. So you're welcome. The Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. On this day, August 22nd, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Riley Epperly, Malin Harris, Nyla New, Kate Nichols, and Jaden Norton. Let's give them all a round of applause. Ladies, and congratulations. Thank you. You're welcome. All right. And now for our Baldwin High School dance team. If you all would like to come up, all two of you. Thanks. And then I'll send these home with you, and you guys can pass them out to the rest. So our dance team also went to a camp this summer. And, sometimes that works out to do that, and sometimes not. And so we appreciate that you guys are going. Again, it's like team bonding, but also you're working on your craft for everything that you're going to provide for the entirety of the year. Do you want to do a plug for your fundraiser that you have going on with the driveway coolness of Bulldogs?
We're doing a fundraiser for our driveway art. So it is $20 for a bulldog head, and then $25 if you want a bulldog head with words of a sword.
It's so awesome. School spirit. Okay. All right. So the team as a whole actually earned a Camp Superior rating. So they did that as a group. And so we wanted to make sure to recognize you guys for that. In addition, Harper Schoendaler also earned an NBA Camp All-American status as well. So that's kind of the equivalent of what we were talking about with the cheer. So we're going to do that all in kind of one swoop. But Allie, thank you for being here, and Harper, thank you for being here to accept this on behalf of your team. The Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. On this day, August 22nd, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Harper Schoendaler, Annette Perez, Allie Peterson, Maggie Steinschauer, and also Harper for her All-American rating as well. So congratulations. Let's give these ladies a round of applause. And thank you to their sponsor for coming as well. Sponsor/mom. And sponsor/mom. Thank you guys for coming. Okay, for our final, actually not quite final, this is actually new. I'm going to have to come back here so I make sure. I can't autopilot this one because this is brand new, so we're very excited about this. This is a brand new recognition that we've added, and it starts tonight. It's called the hashtag Baldwin Built Employee of the Month. So this is a recognition program that has been created to recognize excellence always, but not just excellence in the classroom, but beyond in terms of what the staff member is doing in their own professional development. Not only professional, but I'm trying to think how I want to say this. For this first person that we're giving this award to, I'm going to try not to embarrass him too much, because it is the first of kicking off with every month. We're going to try to recognize someone. We have a program set up for how to do that, how to nominate, all of that. But in terms of the example, I know we want to set for our students, which is that we are always learning. Like, you're never done. And that's a great thing. And so in terms of embodying that professionalism of as a lifelong learner, just because you're the teacher, you're still out there always trying to learn new things, pushing yourself. And there's that saying, I used to do this with my kids all the time, do as I say, not as I do. But actually we all know kids, they do what they see us do. Our words are kind of meaningless unless they match our actions. And that's why I'm very pleased to announce that this award is very deserving. It goes to Drew Ising, whose actions always match his words when it comes to passion for learning and the example that he sets and how he does his life and his profession and how that models for our students in a way that is truly excellent. So the Baldwin Built Employee of the Month is Drew Ising. I already bent his certificate.
Set the bar appropriately.
At this time, we will transition to our educational program highlight, which is another way we celebrate excellence at the district. I'm going to turn that over to Superintendent Dodge. He's going to talk to us about new teacher orientation.
Before I get to that, I think something else that I want to just tag on to the award that Drew was given there. It's also an opportunity to not only recognize the hard work that he does, but also the passion that he has for Baldwin itself and helping recognize when students go the extra mile with students and helping them to inspire that greatness or inspire that next step. So it doesn't have to just be a teacher. It can be a classified staff member. But it's anybody that's taking that to heart. That Baldwin Built is more than just our here today, but it's also the impact that we leave, the legacy that's left behind. So with that, transitioning new teacher orientation, we had 19 new teachers with us on the 4th and 5th. was an awesome day. The day that I'm going to speak about is the 4th. We met over at the junior high, and Derek and his team did a great job of getting the building ready to go for a day's worth of PD. And the next day, they were in their buildings with their admin team. But we spent time talking about, why we're here, why Baldwin was a start. Kelly did an amazing job of promoting that idea of what makes Baldwin the special place. And it's not just that we've selected them, but they also chose Baldwin. And it was a pretty cool thing. I went into a presentation on knowing your why. That's the foundation of what we do. We talked about Simon Sinek's idea behind, you can't really, your what and your how really is not going to be as impactful until you know what your why is. We had some good team building activities built in. Drew and Ashley did a great job with some PD in the afternoon, centered around project-based learning, getting them involved there. And then we took them around the different buildings, and we had tours of the building. I think if you remember the Micro Machines man, the commercial, the guy with the little cars, how fast we had to talk. We did have to use some of that verbiage as we were getting through to make sure we hit all the spots. But it was a fun day. It was a good opportunity to bring staff in and kind of just celebrate being here in Baldwin. So I'm looking forward to it. And then that just that energy, I think, carried over into having everybody back the following 2010. It was fun.
Awesome. All right. Celebrating USD 348 Voices. I've received no letters, so nothing to report from students at this time. Public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on then to our financial report. We have our budget needs assessment. That was all sent to us. If you guys want to have a chance to review that, and if you have any questions, Mr. Olert's here. Yes, he is. If you have any questions about that, but basically that's a new step. Mr. Dodge, if you want to kind of talk about that.
When school districts develop budgets each year, you go through a process in the spring to kind of look at how we spend money and what is it we need to do moving forward. And many districts were doing that. This is the best practice to do it. And in terms of how it was done here, Mr. Dorothy shared with me some of the surveys that were done administratively to get to some of those decisions. The mega bill, the legislation that I spoke to you about in my communications, includes a requirement that the districts utilize a budget needs assessment here that goes through, and it's a formal process that is then posted to your website that the board gives consideration or acknowledgement of different things that it doesn't shape what you do with the budget. It helps inform what you do with your budget. And so the document you have, it looks like an Excel spreadsheet. And there were some questions that KSDE and Greenbush helped create to give us something to look at in terms of some of our data that we have, some of the instructional outcomes that we're looking at. The next handout that you have centers more around the idea of state assessments, not necessarily the data review side of it, but the identification of barriers that as a district we want to overcome, or at the building level that we want to overcome. Some of those actions that we could take within the budget to help get to that process. And the last question is the hard question of, how long is it going to take to get all students basically on grade level? And that's a tough question. And there are some barriers that make that we want all students to be able to get to that point, but there are just some obstacles, some hurdles that make that in some cases more challenging than others. But this is some of the feedback that we've developed. One of the things that we've done, just to kind of speak to one of the examples, is we provide that draft for the board to consider. The increased need for professional development, it shows up here. And so what we've done strategically with the development of the draft budget that we'll talk about next month is an increase in the funding that we've put towards that for the idea of increasing PD in the lines of not just dyslexia and social emotional learning, but just best practices. So that's one example that you'll see. So any questions?
Just a procedural question. I mean, this is a new feature that we'll see in theory each subsequent year here as well. Do we need to approve this
So
An action, or how does that?
what, this is something that superintendents talked about last week at a superintendent's meeting that we were asked. I would like to ask the board, just for a point of record, to approve the needs assessment that we worked on, so that we can have that record. What'll happen when we go through the budget adoption process next month will be, within that motion, it will state that the needs assessment was considered in the development of the budget as you go through it.
Any other questions or comments about, it's a little bit of a change in the process. Not so much in terms of gathering the information, that's always happened, but it doesn't always look this way. I actually don't always love all the changes, but that get put upon us. But I like this one because I feel like it's a reference thing that's, again, why are we doing what we're doing? Because of what we've identified.
And to that point, the way this timed out with the legislation beginning July 1, it kind of put things in I imagine we'll start these conversations second semester as we start looking at shaping of how things are going, and as well as we close out the school year. So this part, I imagine, will be done significantly earlier than this year.
Anybody else? I move we approve the budget needs assessment or accept the budget needs assessment as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. All right. Administrative reports. We have Nicole Burnett with us tonight. Nicole, do you want to go over the easy thing first, which is the milk bid? Is that how you want to do that?
Sure, that's the easy thing.
Okay. I mean, easy, relatively speaking.
Relatively. So if you'll recall from last regularly scheduled board meeting, let's put it that way, we didn't have an actual bid for the biggest item on our milk bid. We received that about a week or so after. And so basically I'm here tonight to ask for your approval of accepting that bid from Highland for us to go forward. I kind of gave you a rundown of our advantages of using basically a milk company versus our main distributor is what those advantages are. So any questions on what you've seen or what's happening at this point? Okay.
So we would need a motion.
Yes, I'll make a motion that we accept the milk bid from Highland.
Phil has moved and Tony has seconded that we approve the milk bid using Highland. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Okay.
Any preference on what we
No.
tackle now?
No,
Okay.
I just thought like that would give like momentum.
Sure. No, that's fine. I think the next one's fairly easy. Basically, after the meeting, started some of our hiring process for the school year, discovered that at some point the manager designation in our staffing program was dropped when we implemented a supervisor. Didn't realize that. We were interviewing, asking people to come on board for that. So I'm basically asking you to reinstate the manager level. Sent out so you kind of knew our overall plan and where we've been and where we're going. This is kind of a temporary thing. I just feel like the staffing we have right now needed some time to grow, to learn how to do their job, and giving them 2 schools was probably entirely too much. They're doing a great job with their 1 school, so completely happy. I just think that would have been an overwhelming task, and they may not have been accepted if I said, "Yay, you're getting the junior high and high school." They are a little more challenging than our elementaries because they have a significant amount of other items that they have to do that the elementaries don't. So it is a little bit more of a challenge to do. So we went from having 4 site managers to having 2 supervisors. Our supervisor stepped down in May. That's why we have the opening. I'm just proposing maybe for this year-ish that we'll have the 2 managers of the junior high and high school versus, and then the elementary supervisor still. We will keep her in that position. There's no change there. But yeah, as looking through, that was kind of okay, so that's no longer on our list. All right, well, we need to put it back on our list because So no changes to the actual job description that I sent you. It's the exact same one that we used to have. So, and I did include a couple other staffing changes and staffing challenges, opportunities that we'll have this year so that you were kind of aware of what's going on with those. I guess I don't know if I need approval for the bakery coordinator intern or not, but you at least have that in case that is something that we need to approve too. Questions?
Well, I would pose it like this as a technical question, but, I mean, we don't need to approve, or do we need to approve this manager time being that's being in existence, or just kind of naturally wasn't for a period of time? That just kind of.
It seems to me, I mean, to me, how people structure things is how people, I don't see anything in policy that says we have to do that. Mr. Dodge, did you see anything different about that, other than we need awareness about how it works, because then the ripple effect of how that's paid, that's why we need to understand it. So I don't know so much if we need to approve how something is titled, but the impact to budget ultimately and payment schedules, that's why we need to understand that, because then that piece we would need to approve. So that kind of sets that up for where you're going next.
Right.
I don't know that we need to give approval for that, but I do think I know we'll need to give approval for part 3 of the trilogy.
Eventual, and yes, and actually, yeah, not asking necessarily for any approval, kind of just more, this is where we're headed, so that you guys can think about what's happening in our program and where we're headed and what that will eventually mean for staffing for the department. But
the before and after charts I thought were helpful.
Good.
Because it shows there's where we were, here's where we are, here's where we'd like to go.
Right.
So that I thought that was really helpful.
Good. Other questions? Okay. Then the final thing was you asked kind of an update for summer programs. So provided a little bit in my Friday message, but basically we grew. I was a little surprised, to be honest. We didn't cater like we had the year before, and so I was kind of thinking we'd have very similar or a little less, and we ended up growing this year. So very happy to report that that's the case. Staff worked well. We hire a couple people each year that are a little bit different. Oftentimes they move into the regular school year, and then we have our regular staff that have come from the school year that help us out. And then there's always a couple that really liked having their summers off, and they are going to keep their summers off, even though we have the summer meals program. So the only thing I would share is, if you remember when we first started, it would have been summer 2019 would have been our first year. And our eligibility was based on census data. That census data is for 5 years. The second year, I should say, we had 2 zones that first year. The second year, we only had 1 zone. It took us down to a smaller area. Not a big deal, because we still had the 5 years coverage, and then COVID happened anyway. So we had area eligibility. We could do anything in our community. So when we head into next summer, we will be back into those zones. So we have those just 2 years left of that eligibility. The last couple of years, we have not had the census data. So we'll just hope that come this, it's usually October, November-ish is when we find out what our eligibility is. So should we not have that, then we just have the 2 years left of the summer program. We're anticipating next summer will be the congregate, where they actually have to eat on site. And so probably a much smaller program than what we experienced the last couple of years, last 3 years, I guess now. And the only other thing I'd say about the summer is, if you haven't been in our buildings lately, certainly go towards the kitchen and check it out, because my staff has been busy. We have started doing some redecorating and theme painting in each of our schools. So it may not be extremely noticeable to anybody, but for those of us working in there day to day, it's very noticeable, the difference. They're much brighter and cleaner looking and nice environments to work in. So no one could tell me the last time we painted in any of the kitchens. And I thought, well, that's probably a good sign that we need to start a plan to do this. So my staff did kind of work on that this summer. The Primary Center kept their Rainbow Pup Cafe theme, and they just expanded. That we have a very, very talented staff. In particular, one of our former BHS students has been working with us for 3 years now. She came back from college, and she's actually going to work with us this fall as well, Joel Morse. So she's the one that's been doing the very talented, those pieces, but we certainly have a couple other very talented people on our staff that backed her up pretty well. So they have the Bullpup Rainbow Cafe. That's to fit the pod colors. If you walk down the hallways, you'll see the same colors. Over here, we've started our diner, 50s diner kind of style is where we're headed. This, unfortunately, was the school that we started last, and because we are here predominantly during the summer doing our prep, it made it difficult for us to move stuff around until the very end. So it'll transform over the next year here. And then the junior high, we just refreshed and went purple. As you probably know, the rest of the building was painted in purple, so we took that theme and carried it on into our kitchen. We have some ideas, but we haven't gone any further with that. And then at the high school, again, we looked at what's going on in the rest of the school. They have a mural on the one wall that's interconnected puzzle pieces. And so we carried that theme into ours. And so have the puzzle theme in our area, plus some just really freshened up. There's some, I guess, paw prints on the back. I'd kind of forgotten about those. But so we're excited about coming out of summer and into the school year with new, fresh looking kitchens to be in. So, questions for me? Anything else you want to know about summer? We didn't do anything different this year than last year, so it's, I don't know what else to share.
Smooth operating machine.
Yeah, just in time for us to change it next year, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, we just get it going in and we figure it out, and then they say, nope, can't do it that way anymore. You got to try something new. So that's fine. We'll figure it out.
You can't make it easy.
No, that would be way too easy for us. So.
Can I go back to the, just because there was a lot of information.
Sure.
Going back into the restructuring, because
sure.
Again, I'm not changing what I said. I don't think, but how does that impact with changing, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find this in the email, from changing to the 2 managers from the supervisor, elected to switch to 2 managers to replace the secondary supervisor. So in terms of budget and all that, is there anything that we need to talk about with that? Because I feel like some of that is implied and not explicitly stated, but I may be wrong about that. So I just want to be really clear what we're
so probably,
signing off on with maybe not, let's connect the dots really close.
So probably, yes, it may need to go on that salary schedule that we have every year. Typically, coordinators, they all receive their base rate. Coordinators would get 75 cents more an hour, a manager's $1.50 more an hour, and supervisors $2 an hour. So I don't know, maybe that needs approval that you continue
That's why I had her here for that approval piece, because what you approved in July had the 75 cent and the $2. It did not have $1.50, and just so that we were on board, since we don't want to leave anybody out or off of schedule. Part of what Nate and I have been working through, our history is through spreadsheets, and it's only as true as the accuracy as we're going through that. And so this is one way it can serve as a checks and balance for us to have that. So that's where I would like to see the approval of that rate.
And I'm sorry, because I was not as clear as I needed to be. That's what I meant by, like, we don't need to approve how you title positions, but we do need to approve how that affects pay scale level.
Right.
Yes.
The position's already there, but the pay right now is absent from that spreadsheet.
Right.
But don't we need to approve if there's a new position also, and would that be?
That's in a personnel report, right?
Well, it would be new, and that's why, because of the changes and because of the directional changes that I think that you're wanting to go, that's asking us to add something that was not already there in that form. And that's why we need to understand it and what that impact is to. So
This is a year where I think she's trying to be very creative with how to solve the issues. We've got a couple of maternity leaves, and we've got a retirement, and these are in some key positions. And I think she's working hard to recognize the strengths within her staff to be able to get us through the year with an opportunity to look at what can we do in the future.
Right, to move forward after they have their babies and she moves on into retirement. Yes, we will still be here and we will still be feeding children and how are we going to do that? So ultimately, I still think the supervisor model is a better model. It's more efficient. I like to have supervisors and the coordinators who are specializing in the one area, both in the sense of ordering food and doing that from that sense, as well as staffing wise. We just aren't a big enough staff that I feel like we need one at every building. I think they can supervise. They independently work quite well. So, and they're often one or two people. So it's not like, in a situation where you really need a site supervisor because there's 7 or 8 people running around. That's not our model anymore. And so, that's kind of that.
So the net change is going to be like 350?
I don't even know that it's that much.
If you're losing one $2 spot and adding $2.75 spot?
$1.50.
Okay.
Right. So
$1.
Right. So, and
the change is $1.
Yeah. So,
But is the bakery intern a new position?
Technically, no.
Oh, okay. You're just shifting a position around.
We just want somebody to shadow our bakery coordinator. Right. So I wanted you to know what our bakery coordinator was and what they did. Mary does a lot with a very little time. She's been working in food service, school food service for 30 plus years. It's close to 20 years with our school district. She was in one of the elementaries that was closed and they moved her into this position and she's excelled and she will be impossible to replace. So I certainly want to gather some of that knowledge before it leaves our system, and it's finding, I guess I brought it up basically in your report because it's finding somebody who will do that. If you're not in the food service world, you don't know that a lot of people don't bake anymore. We're having trouble finding people who know how to follow the directions on the box to cook, let alone the level of science that's involved with following the recipe. At a bakery level, you're weighing items, and she's making them for our entire district. So if she's not accurate, then our entire district suffers. And that's not just flavor and quality for our students, but that's reimbursement as well. She has to follow those guidelines in order for us to receive that. So it's very important that we find somebody. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that we were kind of looking for that person. I'll be going to the Baldwin job fair. I'm probably eventually going to post the bakery position at our state and national levels, simply because it requires a little bit different person than what we currently have been attracting. There's always the possibility there's somebody here in our community who likes to bake already, and we're just teaching them how to do it in the school environment, but we haven't found them yet. So it's kind of figuring out how we can do that and letting them learn. What I intend is for this person to learn from her for a few hours every morning. Mary comes in about 5:30 in the morning, so she's there quite a bit before the rest of the staff, so bringing that person in a little bit earlier. And then sometime in the middle of the morning, they would transition into helping prep. So it wouldn't really be a different position completely than that. So that, I don't think I shared the entire staffing plan, but that doesn't, we already have a position there. Yeah, so it's not a brand new, yeah. So, yeah.
I think we would have to approve a new position.
Yeah. And for the most part, my staff is used to moving around building to building. Part of that's necessity, part of it's cross-training. So they're quite familiar with, okay, so we got a new position. I also like them to fit the personality of the building, fit the personality of the other people they're working with. So some of that we just shift around too to accommodate. So there may be some movement just when we hire a new person that may require that. So but yeah, I really wanted to make sure that we got the people that we have in our department who are interested in being the managers. They are fulfilling that role right now because I have no choice but to have them fulfill that role right now. So I wanted to make sure that they were at least compensated for that, and moving forward that we're able to move forward with the plan.
Does anybody else have questions, comments? Observations? So we have two choices. We can either, if you need more time to absorb all of this, we can vote on it next month, or we can vote on it now. So,
I make a motion to approve the $1.50 scale on the manager position in the food service.
okay.
Second?
Kelly has moved and Susan has seconded to approve the position as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right. Oh, I'm seeing aye. I just saw a look of something.
Oh, mine?
Yeah. Okay.
He moved
I
on.
guess I need more coffee.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, moving on to RAP Memorandum of Understanding. Mr. Dodge, yeah.
The memorandum of understanding is what is signed annually to continue the RAP services that we've got within our district. It's the standard MOU of understanding from years past. I did explain the change in with the addition of Medicaid billing, and then beyond that, the private insurance piece that's there. I would ask that we go ahead and approve the memorandum of understanding so that we can continue those services. But I would still like the opportunity to visit with Bert Nash a little bit more. I'm fine with the Medicaid piece. That's something that we do in other areas with reimbursements. But I still would like to have a little bit more discussion on the other piece, the insurance side of things. I know other area superintendents have the same question as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that we need to continue the service because it's been a great benefit to our community. I do have a lot of questions about why they're, I was trying to look up the exact numbers here, but as best I could tell that because that sales tax increase that we passed in 2018 or 19, whatever it was, as far as I could tell, Bert Nash gets about $250,000 per year to do the service for the county. So I'm a little confused about how it was solvent before, now it's not. But at the same time, I still think the benefit of it is not worth haggling about at the moment. So make sure that kids continue to get services, but I think it would be worthwhile to press on to say, maybe see the books a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm good with that.
So we would need a motion to approve that.
Can I ask one question?
Of course.
I noticed when it was defined as 3 encounters before it became, and I guess I'm curious of what the definition of an encounter is. That's a word that isn't normally used in that context.
They're leveraging that with the idea of the intervention then crosses over into therapy. And so the level of support then crosses into the realm of therapy. That's where I've been told that we're going to continue to try to keep, we shouldn't see a huge shift. They'll continue if it's a check-in, high five, that sort of thing. When the meeting itself crosses into the significant, 30 minutes or so, then we're looking at a little more intensified support there.
So maybe similar to a consultation, like on premises type thing. It's not an encounter wouldn't be.
No, it's not seeing you in the hallway high five. This is going to be more of a extended conversation, an intentional meeting to visit with the student. So.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we would accept a motion for the MOU for RAP.
I move that we approve the RAP MOU next school year.
Second?
Chris has moved and Susan has seconded that we approve the RAP MOU for 22-23 as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. KSU affiliation agreement.
Is as someone who is a Washburn Ichabod and married into a very KU family, I do this with the idea that it's what's best for the overall, in seriousness. This allows students that are going to K-State to attend college to be able to student teach in USD 348.
So I'm assuming we have this with Baker, KU, how many of those?
This is the first one I've seen this year.
So moved on.
You have them at KSU.
Right.
I'll second it, yeah.
Actually, I think I heard Susan, didn't I? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, did you? Oh.
Yeah, so Kelly moved and Susan seconded to approve the KSU affiliation agreement as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, great. Next up, boys soccer trip. All right, we have Mr. Stavanis and Mr. McCune here to visit with us about that this evening.
Well, you're giving a speech.
That's probably.
Paper, rock,
It's a real good thing. I kind of put in my board brief last week, Coach McCune is kind of toying with the idea of taking an international trip next summer. Or the summer after. I kind of, in the very, very preliminary planning stages, but obviously we always have the standard out-of-state request trips forms. That was pretty straightforward. We go international. It's a whole nother issue or package of issues. Historically, we have in the past taken French and Spanish clubs on trips. I kind of tried to find some stuff in board docs, policy. I couldn't find a whole lot on internet or anything on international trips. So with that ado, I'm going to let Coach McCune kind of talk about his ideas and we'll go from there.
Sure, thanks, Gary. I'm not going to take too much time, but it's a passion of mine is traveling. I played all sorts of sports growing up here in Baldwin, and soccer stuck. It's kind of a natural soccer. I had the opportunity when I was 14 to go overseas, play for a youth national team, and got to go all over Europe. Summer when I was 15, 16, did the same thing and kind of fell in love with that whole idea. It's a great experience. I love sharing that with other people. 2018, I was very fortunate to pick up an amazing job working for National Geographic expeditions, taking people on tours at different places around Europe. Last year with COVID, Europe was still kind of shut down initially. Then I was scheduled to go to Alaska and Hawaii to lead 4 tours of Alaska and Hawaii. And with about 2 weeks prior, they said, hey, Iceland just opened. Do you want to spend summer in Iceland? Of course, I said yes. I've been to Iceland 2 times before that. Iceland is an amazing country, 350,000 people, has a lot to offer in terms of sightseeing, the culture. It's just a wonderful place. It is, according to many different reports, the 2nd safest country in the world. And it's a place where I got a lot of contacts recently. And it's a place I would love to share with other people, especially as a coach. You tend to get in a really close relationship with your players. Soccer is amazing in Iceland right now. They've really done a nice job of bringing up from their youth a program. For such a small country, they're ranked 17th in the world. And this is a place that is higher than 60 degrees north. So there's not a lot of daylight a lot of times throughout the year to play. And getting fields is also another difficult thing. So they've done it the right way. I found some contacts. My son was over there with me in 2018 and actually trained with an academy team there. So I've got really good contacts in terms of that. And so in the back of my head, I'm also a dreamer. I'm always thinking, what could I do with my boys to give them a good experience and create good memories. So I put this together. Like Gary said, it's preliminary. It may not look, if you watch this video, it may not look like it's preliminary, but it is. I teach video creation in class. So, and these are all pictures that I've come up with on my tours. So it's like 4.5 minutes. And I'd like to share it with you just so you can get a kind of an idea.
Hello, Bulldog fans. This is John Dale, voice of Sporting Kansas City, and I'm here to share a wonderful opportunity for all Baldwin High School soccer players. How would you like to spend a week in the land of fire and ice next summer for perhaps the grandest, most memorable soccer trip of your lifetime? You'll have the chance to explore a landscape like no other. A terrain that is truly out of this world. With powerful, enchanting, and majestic waterfalls at every turn of your head that just beckon for adventure. On this trip, you'll have the opportunity to strap on some crampons and trek along Europe's largest glacier. And on that same day, hike up a volcano and see the raw, fresh beauty of its mesmerizing lava flows. On our adventure, we will sail to the volcanic and unique Westman Islands, where we'll get the chance to chase down orcas at breakneck 70 miles per hour. Of course, there will be some downtime as we visit the numerous natural hot springs that Iceland has to offer, including the ever-popular Blue Lagoon. We will also get to experience the delicious and scrumptious Icelandic cuisine. But the trip isn't complete without soccer, where we will train and play on some of the nicest pitches in Iceland. How good is soccer in Iceland? It is the most popular sport in the country, and every player of every club, no matter how old, belongs to a professional team, including the wee lads. But don't take my word for it. Just listen to what the locals have to say.
This summer, Iceland qualified for the Euro Cup, and that's where the Viking chant began.
2 stops, 1 clap with a hoop. Simple. There was some guys who were playing football and they just united the country together. Forgot about everything. We just watching our heroes coming home. Almost emotional. You can imagine Vikings going to war. Kemur því til að gera hlutina sama. The chant to me personally is connection. To be able to witness this as Iceland in a major tournament is just unbelievable.
It makes you feel unstoppable.
Powerful is probably the best description of it. You really feel that you were supporting the guys on the field. Feels like a family. You can see kids, men, women, old people, everyone there. You really feel there's something special happening. Marley, we're about to do something really crazy. Woo! Under the waterfall.
So, I mean, as you can see, it would be an amazing experience. One thing, as I've worked for National Geographic, one thing that I really don't particularly care for is the fact that only wealthy people get to enjoy that. So the idea is it's probably going to cost between $2,500 to $3,000. And the idea is to raise approximately 60 to 75% of that. That way, I don't want someone to turn down an offer to go because they can't afford it. So we're in the process of looking for several different fundraising opportunities for that. But as you can see, it is a beautiful place and it would be a great experience. I guess you guys have any questions or anything?
Well, I know the band does international travel and they contract with an organization that plans everything. Is that what you're thinking, or are you thinking about you?
I think to cut out as the middleman as much as possible. I've already looked into like transportation and things. So pretty much everything would be, and I have everything itemized of what would cost money. So pretty much the only thing that would be up in the air right now would be obviously airline. And with the way the airline industry is right now, you don't know what it's going to be. Last time I checked, out of Kansas City, it was $800 for a week to Reykjavik, which is it's spot on. It's about right. And then insurance for trip insurance, and then passport if they need a passport.
I think it'd be a cool experience for some students that may otherwise not get to travel outside of the state and to experience soccer at a level they wouldn't typically get in this area.
Yeah, they'll have their eyes open about soccer level.
Yeah.
Trust me. Yeah.
Do you have a limit on the number of boys you can take?
I don't really necessarily have a limit on that number. We have about 40 to 45 boys on the team. I doubt.
I saw them.
Yeah, I doubt that many would go. I actually have a low number though to make it work, and that's 16.
Okay.
Yeah, 16 to make it work.
So what would be the ratio of supervision to player or student?
I've had several parents already offer to go. So that, I mean, obviously we'd have to wait, but really what I would like it as for National Geographic, it depends on what trip I'm going. I've taken teens before, and the ratio for that has been about 8 to 1, and I wouldn't see it getting higher than that at all. So I would think it'd probably be more like 4, 5, 6 to 1.
You might have some school board members.
Any other questions?
That just sounds like an opportunity of a lifetime, right? And the only problem is you won't bring the same boys back that you take over there. It will be entirely different.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I have, and there's also some alumni that are a little bit angry right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity.
And like I put in my email, I don't think we're necessarily looking for, we're going to approve this trip. It's more of a blessing to at least explore the planning and start fundraising and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If there is a backup plan, I mean, if we fundraise and then, if something falls through or whatever, we'll still plan something else. It's not a bad thing to have excess funds for fundraising. So we need new white uniforms every year. We have a grass field.
So the trip would be 100% funded by either the fundraising or the student's family.
Yes. And like I said, goal is 60, 75%. I would, obviously, we would love it if we could do it all.
Sure.
And because really then you just know the people who are afraid to travel because they're the ones staying home.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that. So.
Mm-hmm. It seems like the consensus is go forth and fundraise.
Okay.
And good luck.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the information. All right. Old business, KSB policy updates.
Last month, we provided for you the novel set of policy updates that were recommended this time around. Again, many of them were thanks to the legislation that recently occurred. And so it was more of an opportunity to process through those. There was one that we're waiting to see KSDE's take on it, and that's in relation to the survey mechanism that's there. We give the Kansas communities that care every year, and part of our enrollment practice this year was to get the opt-in as part of that. So we'll be looking to deliver that as soon as possible so we can be within that window. The feedback, the guidance that's coming down from KSDE now is for any assessment, quiz, survey, questionnaire that is not deemed that is deemed non-academic requires opt-in. And what that does for us is, My Savers is one that we utilize for social emotional. And so right now at this time, what I've talked to our principals about doing is we'll go ahead and just give the Savers version, which is teacher rated. It's not the best data, but it is data that we can go on and kind of see how things shape up through the next several months if that gets adjusted. But the recommendations that are coming through there with KSB put us in line with legislation at this point.
So I have a couple items, but I have more than one, so if anybody else has policy observations, I want to let everybody else have a chance first. Or I can fill time until you find, okay. So I had a question on number 14 on the, that's the second attachment in board docs. Number 14 says memorials, funerals, and naming of district facilities, removal of references to permanent memorials as well as temporary memorials should not be visible in schools, as well as clarification of the types of memorials allowed. And I know that we've talked about that from a moving forward, but when I see the word removal, does that mean we have to change something that we already have, as in the Merle Venable Sports Complex that's right out front? I have questions about that one. And just the larger issue of, if something's in policy, we should follow it. Obviously, it's going to be there. And related to that, number 19 for school site councils, it says wording changes and meaning of the policy did not change. The recommendation is to do not approve. Board members and principals do not currently approve site council member, and the current policy does not contain what is being changed. But yet our district policy says we should. I don't know that we have to.
I was unaware that the board was approving site councils.
Well, it's in our policy that we're supposed to.
Right.
And so I just want to open the door to just that broader conversation, kind of like what we talked about at staff convocation. We want to lean on the wisdom and knowledge of our veterans of, why we do things, and there's reasons for it. But we also want to benefit from the wisdom of fresh perspectives. And if we weren't having a problem with a particular policy, this is just a good year now that we're not in the muck of all the other weirdness. I'm not even going to say the C word out loud, but it's an opportunity for us to look at that, because if a policy isn't an issue and doesn't need to be there, then that can come through the chain of command. And we don't want to put lines in the sand where there don't need to be any if it wasn't an issue. And this is just an opportunity for that. I am a little leery about that one that says the removal.
I think that's in reference to because if you go back and actually look at the policy change, it clarifies that I guess the policy said permanent. It says it removes permanent, so that even temporary ones fall under the.
Right.
So you still can. I think you can still have them. At least looking at the if you go back to the first deal.
Right.
Because it says to allow boards in district facilities after a living person prefer.
Do you know what page it's on in the full document?
I just don't want to agree with something that I didn't really mean to. And then we have to take down some cement structure because we're following policy.
And I don't
You know what I mean?
I don't know that this is telling you to take down.
Okay.
I think what it's doing is it's allowing boards the flexibility to name after someone who's either passed away or still.
That's what it means.
That's how I read the.
Okay.
Yeah, and it looks like, I'm not looking at the full policy, that should clarify that memorials, even temporary ones, are generally not be visible in the schools, where I think I said before, permanent.
It's kind of like Kelly asking, what does encounter mean? It just, depending on the context, I just wanted to make sure. So
right now, we have the policy, but with the word permanent in it. So this is just removing the word permanent.
Right. Removing the word, we're not removing.
Right.
It's a contextual thing. Right. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
So still learning these acronyms, but what's the first letter, like
That's in reference to the policy labeling section, yeah. Mhm.
It's under facility expansion program. We'll make this.
Yeah, I can't find the full policy here, but it does, I'm on page 75 of 90. And I can't search on my tablet here, but it says, it looks like it's adding, under memorials, funerals, and naming of district facilities, there are 3 subsections in there. Memorials and funerals is the second one. And then it adds the language of, to funerals, says, and memorial services in district facilities. So I don't, but I can't find the full policy anywhere. I mean, I'm sure it's here, it's a big document. That's in the table of contents.
Well, I mean, if it comes down to it, I mean, anytime we have the ability to change this really at any point in time, right? So if we accept this, and they're like, oh, the venerable sign has to come down, we say, oh, let's change it back to
And what I'm, as I pulled up the actual policy here, I think it's just wanting us to, is recommending we take out the term permanent within the policy. as it's
Removing
written.
the word, not
Yeah.
removing
Right.
the conceptual
So
idea.
It's all language. yeah,
Okay.
in that sense.
Well, that's what I just wanted to make sure that I understood what I was. Mhm. Okay. Those were my 2 questions, so.
What was the second?
Second was IB, the second.
About site council.
Oh, okay, so thoughts on that. Having sat in those before, they seem like they're a pretty darn fluid thing. That would be a complete pain for us to continue to authorize and, do roll call on who's in, who's not there, right? So I think even though our policy says that we're supposed to approve it, I think we ought to not bother with approving it like we have been doing the last 2 years. Because I just can't imagine that, like we talked about earlier, having some new leadership at the elementary level. That's a great thing, but I don't want to have the additional step personally anyway of having to authorize that to make sure that those folks who want to be involved can just be involved
Without having to be a fussy thing that has to be uploaded to board docs every month.
Right.
And that's the larger conversation. I just want to open it. Like if something doesn't make sense to do, then let's, as a board, have that conversation.
Well, then should we change our policy to say we'll delegate to the building leaders or the?
We certainly could.
When I made that recommendation, it was based on the fact that since I've been here, we've not approved them.
Right, and that's what I was saying at the beginning of the meeting. Full disclosure, I didn't even go there. I forgot most of the time because I wasn't thinking about it over the past 2 years. And B, it seemed unnecessary because sometimes people can go and participate in site council and then sometimes they have to step away, and that's something we're chasing all the time. District site council is more fixed, which is why we approved that.
And I want to be transparent here. I didn't go in and research this because my previous stops, I've not taken the site council membership to the board. So I didn't do my homework in terms of looking at this specific one. So I apologize on that front.
So the letter was
IB. Yeah. And where it says here is we've got, I can't think of what the name of that indentation mark is, but each principal shall submit for the board's consideration names of individuals to be considered for appointment to the site council. The board shall appoint site council members.
I mean, I don't want to. I'm just trying not to put that on people.
So I'm trying to think whether if we want to make a motion, do we need to say how do we phrase that? Since it's currently a policy, we need to.
It would have to be a motion since it would be a policy, proposed policy
So
change.
that then would go to the administrators, whoever's the principals in charge.
Like they've been doing anyway.
So, okay, so I'll make a motion.
Okay.
So we accept that motion, that we delegate the approval of site council membership and participation to the building administrators.
Second.
Bill has moved and Susan has seconded that we change our current policy to not require the board to authorize individual building site councils. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. So principals, ignore everything we said during announcements.
Yeah.
You're good.
What is the policy on that one?
IB.
But district site council, we still will formally approve that because that's a KISA requirement thing and we want to, that will stay with.
And then as far as.
So basically, we're going to do what we've been doing. We just have policy to match it now, in full honesty.
And as far as the rest of the KASB policy.
So we'll get to that.
I was like,
Yeah, we're just keeping that separate so it doesn't make a huge long motion. So that's one thing. But then we have the rest of and the KASB policy recommendations actually list as their recommendation what we just did. But because it's a change for us, it was important to have that as its own separate motion.
All right, so then I move that we approve the board policy recommendations as presented.
Second.
Chris has moved and Tony has seconded that we approve the KASB policy updates as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Thanks for hanging with that, guys. Policy updates are not the most exciting thing that we do, but they are among the most important, even if they're not the most glamorous.
You pointed out, if the policy isn't matching what our practice is, we need to make an adjustment somewhere.
Yes.
So I appreciate you guys working through that.
Okay. Bond exploration update. We can do the easy stuff first. In that Mr. Dodge and I can tell you that we've got committees. If you want to talk about that part, where we're at in that process.
So there's 3 committees that we'll utilize. One of them is the administrative committee. So that will essentially be our operations team, which is building principals and then our directors. So that'll be a big piece there. The second committee that we need to put together is our community membership. And so with that, we've gone through and identified, I'm going to pull it up here. We've identified a variety of individuals that we will be seeking out. Here it is. That Kelly and I will be seeking out over the course of the next week or so. And we're trying to make sure that we have a representation of as many different stakeholder groups as we possibly could as we're putting together. It's tough when you're limiting it to about 15 people. But we want to make sure that we get parent representation on there, that we get some business industry representation there. We've got some community leaders that have been in the know for quite a while. We've got our rec commission that'll be a part of that. And then through conversations with Baker University, we've got some representation there as we're looking at some potential opportunities that might exist there. Another group that we'll have that we want to put together is our staff and student group. We want to make sure that we get classified staff, that we get teachers, as well as students. One of the caveats to this, and this is what's probably going to make this the hardest of the lift here, is that these groups are going to meet every 3 weeks or so. And so we want to make sure that we get that long-term commitment from those individuals. But this will be an exciting piece. We've asked for a roadmap from Kevin, and they're in the process of developing that. And so as soon as they send that to me, I'll make sure that I fire it off to you all.
On that list of community stakeholders, I know Parks and Rec uses our facilities pretty regularly. Do we have additional community groups that use our facilities for rental purposes, like Boy Scouts, like the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any of those types of organizations, to see what kind of needs we may have with their perspective?
We don't have them specifically, but there are people who on this list that check multiple boxes. Their recommendation was to keep those groups like 12 to 15, I think it was the 12 to 15 is what I'm remembering. And so you can get 50 people before you know it. So we were trying to come up with people who had roles in multiple organizations and could represent different interests. So we're working on that. As part of that, here's the segue. We have to have a couple of board members who are willing to ride herd on all of this. So meaning that's more meetings and all that goes with that. 2 to 3 would be nice. I think, 2, kind of the way we've formatted some of our other board responsibilities. We have 2, and then we have kind of that third alternate that can help cover, because we understand life and we also understand to get all this done by January. I mean, it will be an ambitious pace of having meetings every 3 weeks, and so we understand that. I'm certainly willing to be one of those people, but if we have 2 more, we need to have. Okay, cool.
All 3, or are you just talking, are we gonna split them up?
They've said, they want us to cover, yeah. Yeah, and that's why they said 2 board members, and that's why I'm saying, well, let's do 3, because let's be realistic, and some of us are busier at night, some of us are busier in day, and if you've got 3 people, you can cover each other and communicate. And then it also, if there's something that needs to be shared information-wise in between a meeting, we don't have a coma problem because it's 3 and not 4. So that was the thing, okay. Is everyone comfortable with that?
I was gonna suggest Andy, because he's not here.
Right? That's how it works.
Yes, volunteer.
Actually, that's really not a bad suggestion though, because he was on the other bond.
Yes, he was, which is why I think he doesn't want to do it.
He doesn't, okay, if you already know that,
I don't want to
that's
speak for
We
him.
have our volunteers.
I can speak for Andy Parks.
Yeah.
He is very pleased, you two.
Okay. Certainly, we don't want anyone to feel excluded, but,
I appreciate you guys doing that, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Got some overlap there.
One more.
Better call Alter.
I think we will alternate.
Yeah.
well, thank you very much. The last piece of that is that we did have it on our list that we were supposed to select our design option. I don't know how much time you guys have spent researching that. We were presented with 3 options when DLR came, and they had asked us at our next meeting to go ahead and make that selection. Those are in the materials that are in board docs, or actually they're in email if you need to go back and look at that. But we are asked to pick a design option tonight. That was the, design to build, option number 1.
Bid, design, bid, build.
Yes.
Construction manager, and then.
You have like that middle option where you're sort of more involved, but not. And then option 3 where you're like all, lots of oversight. So I think we all got a little fuzzy-eyed about minute 22 on that presentation. So I know it's been a minute, so it's fine to take time and go back and revisit that.
Do you think that list might be in name of
Let me find it. Actually, it might have been. Let me go look in board docs first. Because it was up on the screen, so I feel like it was in.
Oh, it might be in the previous meeting.
Uh-huh.
So there's design, bid, build, construction manager, agent, and construction manager at risk.
Yeah, I think the first option, to use an analogy, is a little bit too cold. The second option is a little bit too hot. The third option seems to be, in my mind, just right. Because then we have somebody that's sort of managing this for us, but we don't have to make every decision. We don't have to manage all of it.
So let me ask a question. If we were go to like the just right porridge, who is the person that's managing? Oh, pause on that until we get it in front of us. Sorry.
Megan, if I send this to you, can you put it into board docs?
DLR, so it was July 18th. Yeah.
We sent you on a PowerPoint on the 20th.
Design, bid, build, construction manager, agent, construction manager at risk. I just wish I could see that visual.
Yeah. So
Megan's gonna take the PowerPoint that I forwarded her, and she'll put it in board docs, and you'll be able to see it. It's the PowerPoint that shows the visual to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the construction manager at risk addresses this challenge of having things go higher on cost by guaranteed maximum price. Borrowing chart, change orders.
bond explanation update.
Yes, please.
You're awesome, thank you. Thanks for finding it, thanks for getting it in there. Okay.
So Kelly, do you have an opinion?
I do. I like the just right porridge, but I'm concerned about who is the person then. I don't want to pick that unless and I also want to be just realistic about transitional issues. I don't like to stick somebody else with a job that I won't be around to do. So if I was going to be on here for another 4 years, I would like the middle option.
Yeah, do you think that the at-risk, the construction manager at-risk, that is gonna be one of us?
I don't know. That's the question I'm asking. Is that something we're asking of is that something we would ask of our?
I think it's a higher position.
So there are construction companies, DSC is one of them, where they can either be, they can do the DLR thing, can do it all, or they can be the company that you bring in that works with DLR, that manages it. They help you.
I don't think it puts
they take the.
Well, we would have to not bid it, but we would have to launch the process of hiring and selecting, just like we would with any other large scale, and we would have to do it pretty quickly. So I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just want us to have eyes wide open about what we would be asking our still very new people what to do and to add. And if that's what we're asking, that's what we're asking. I just want us to have eyes open. To hire that, we would have to go through a formalized process that is, mandated by the state, just like other types of bidding, And that's okay. I just want us to make sure we know what we're choosing.
Yeah, it's 8 to 10 weeks after an RFP is solicited.
So all these contractors, if there's area, local ones, et cetera, we go with, depending on the option, basically, we would have no influence if we were construction manager at risk. That is all handled. The only one that would have us involved in that would be this construction manager agent, which is the two option. Which I guess we do. I don't know how important that is, but I just don't know. We have a lot of people that are local contractors that don't even get an opportunity to bid it or be involved in it because their kids are here in school.
Probably make that part of the stipulation when you're deciding who to hire. Give preference to or include options for.
Well, the concern I have is my understanding of the construction manager agent model, that middle one, is that we're dealing with all the contractors, right? I mean, we're the green box, the owner there.
Right.
And that's what I mean by that one. Wait, I don't want to touch
That's
that
too
one.
hot.
That's too hot, right? It's too much, right? But the traditional model, that's the design, build, bid, build, is too slow, I think, first of all, in a sort of a volatile era that we're in now. And that's the one that really takes our hands out of the whole situation. Right? So I was being cutesy with my cold and hot kind of thing, but I really do see that design, bid, build, we're really removed. We're right in the middle of it with that middle model. So the moderate model is the last one, but I do understand who's going to be the key person, who's going to be that owner box.
Mhm.
Well, I'm already on the committee for the bond exploration, so can we?
Well, we're not even with the history, but we're all of us.
Yes, but you still need to have that, what I want to be mindful of is that we have new directors, new superintendent doing a great job. Also have never done a bond before. I've never done a bond before. I just want to keep it real. I don't want to leave anything hanging in the sense of we're asking people to do something that I just want to make sure, like I say, eyes open. But if we have somebody that's like, yeah, I'm here on the committee, I'm willing to help track. I just, making sure we have kind of that commitment to one another that we really, so we have our hands around it. I was drawn to the Just Right porridge myself because it was kind of more of a, but
I think that's the most expensive of the three, at least in the pre-construction period.
and that's the other piece. But then when I, as a board member, looking at the newness and all of that, then I kind of kept going back to, even though it is slower and gives us less control, the design bid build, just because of where we're at human resources wise. So, and I can be convinced in either direction, but that's, I'm torn for different reasons.
I wish they were here to take questions to help us.
You said call them at any time.
But they need to know this tonight. I mean, we need to finalize this.
Well,
Because now that we're trying to make this decision, it's like your question of who that owner is. I mean, is this gonna be a committee? And again, we're using this graph. I would not think that we as owners on that middle option, and I'm not advocating for the middle option, but I mean, we wouldn't be subcontracting this ourselves. I mean, somebody would be doing that.
I think you might be surprised.
Yeah.
That's asking.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We got to identify who is the somebody.
It looks like the contractors are fall underneath the owner.
Right, and I agree that that's the no-go. So to me, I mean, I'm super comfortable with design bid build. That's everything we've done. We're building a new building. That's how we're doing that. So it's like, I'm super comfortable with that and I understand that process. But I also recognize that it is slow. And then you do have the price, the price of this went up. And the with the CM at risk,
There's trade-offs with each approach, but I just ask that we look at the landscape of our district. And then also thinking ahead, who's going to be in certain spots a year from now, 2 years from now, et cetera. And the only reason why we would need to make this decision tonight, if we can't make it tonight, we could probably schedule a special meeting if we need to. But if we go with the option where we need to bid out this general or follow the state statute requirements that are involved with hiring a general contractor to stay on our timeline, that's the reason for making a decision tonight. But if the board is not ready for that and you need a few more days to just dive into the deep end with this some more, we could do a special meeting if we needed to. But we've got to decide soon if we're going to go with an option that bids something out or we're.
From my end of things, I'd rather you be comfortable with the decision and not feel like you're making a quick one at this point to be able to move on.
Right.
I mean, right now, I think I'd like the last option. I don't know enough to say that's the one I would pick. I mean, the other one's slower. I mean, we're not really in a huge hurry though. I mean, there's nothing.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing about this other than
the bond deadlines are more.
Yeah, that's the big
construction.
Correct.
Part.
That's why I'm a little.
Yeah, it could be.
That means, could this even be waited? I mean, do we have to do this before we can move forward with the project?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it affects it affects how they bid it.
Put together the plan.
And put together the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I see the downsides to the design bid build, but I feel like the upside is it's a pretty known entity, and there to that point, you can pick a local, general contractor. You don't have to use Kansas City or Wichita. who's gonna be using local subcontractors.
So are we, I mean, reading the room a little bit here, are we okay to kind of essentially eliminate the construction manager agent one, that middle one?
Yeah.
Just because I think the context of Kelly is important here, like, it just seems,
Yeah.
it's too hot.
That
It's too hot.
That one
Yeah.
scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. Is that just managing all the plumbing contracts?
Oh my God.
I mean, yeah, it would just be it'd be a mess. So really between the two, like more traditional design build, the design build or that last, zone called again?
At risk.
At risk.
Construction manager at risk.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the major benefit is that they're responsible for
Do you have
costs.
input?
The at risk.
Do you have input?
So the
Overrides, yeah.
A little bit.
Could we hear from other folks who are more knowledgeable about such things than I, for sure? That could be the third grader that's not here right now, but
I'm not more knowledgeable, I went over this with Dave Cunningham concerning another problem. And the construction manager at risk, you know, it guarantees that they deliver your project at a guaranteed maximum price. And I think we'll still be able to suggest local vendors in that concept. But then they, you know, if they don't deliver, then they get penalized. And I think we can also include a timeline in that too. So I think that's one thing to look at.
So the CM, from your perspective, the construction manager at risk, operates as what we're accustomed to as a general contractor.
Right.
They're
It's
going to
just
be our
basic.
contact person who's managing the project.
Exactly. Yes, they're gonna take all that away from us and.
For a fee.
Yes, for a fee.
So they basically take on the pressure of making sure things get done on time within budget
Yes.
versus us having to do that.
Yes.
So really my understanding of it is the main key feature is the design bid build, which we're all accustomed to. We are going to have to absorb the unknown costs, the change orders, those type of things. We're under the construction manager risk. Once the project's done, they've got to figure out how to make all of that fit into, and we're not going to have to be, you know,
So it hedges up
digging,
this.
we're not gonna have to dig deeper into.
And you have to pay a little upfront to maybe not stay.
So then we're gonna have to pay them up front. So it's kind of like prepaying for the insurance of the project being within the scope of what we signed up for.
Well, but my understanding of it is it goes beyond cost as well, right? It's sort of in the traditional design bid build project, what we do is we design it, right? And it's set. Then we bid that very project and they build that, whatever that design is, right? It's a little bit more flexible in the construction manager at risk model because there are some things that if we get into it, the construction manager and the design team, if I'm reading this diagram correctly, they have an arrow between them, and so they have some connection between those two, and so we get a little bit more flexibility. Does it cost more because we're changing things? It's kind of, yeah, but I don't think that's altogether terrible, right? If we run into something, we sort of say we want to tweak this part of this design because the construction manager says, oh, we can, you know, we can get these materials, whatever the case is, right? So it's a little bit more set under the traditional model, right? Here's the design, you bid it, you build it as it is designed, and we aren't going to change that a whole lot. And to my money, I would just as soon pay a little bit for a little bit more flexibility, right? Does it require a little bit more oversight on the owner's part? Yeah, it does. I mean, that's the risk that we're taking. But I sort of like that.
Yeah, but I'm with you, Tony. I think you have this whole, like the Panasonic project is coming through next, well, whenever it actually gets shovel ready, but that may influence a lot of things, like in terms of our ability to get plumbers and our ability to get electricians over here may be impacted by that. And I think that construction manager at risk gives us a bit more flexibility to adjust to things as it evolves in the next 5 years, whatever it takes.
And that's not a risk to us, that's a risk for the construction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I like to outsource risk.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Is there consensus? So what we would need to do then is by formally selecting that would engage, the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm
Let's see if I understand it right.
right,
Yeah.
that would allow Mr. Ohlert to engage with the process of putting the information out to actually get the general contractor,
That's nice.
right, according to the
So
statute.
we can meet with them then.
Is that right? Okay. So if that would help them to be able to do that on our behalf if we're ready to make that selection.
CM at risk is what I'm hearing.
CM at risk. Okay. Ready for a motion?
Sure, I make a motion that we adopt the contract manager at risk metric or model for spending on.
Phil has moved and Chris has seconded that we select the CM at risk model, which will allow us to then begin the process of submitting and hiring a general contractor. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye.
Aye.
Motion.
If we voted on that, my question would be, we don't hire them until after the bond passes.
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing. So the upfront money, that's,
So I mean, we could hire them and then after the bond passes.
that's the risk.
No, and the benefit with going DLR is they'll ride through it as
Right.
we, to help us get through that. So,
But there's always, but we don't know.
With the design bid build, you pay nothing till it's done.
Right.
That was part of the calculation.
We're not taking free swings. Okay. What's going comp?
Okay. Ready to move on? Do we? Well, Nate hasn't sent out any email announcements yet, so, I mean, the motion passed, but if there was not an understanding of,
Actually, I
That's-
didn't understand that, I should think about that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to word that in a way that was,
Just because we made that motion, though, doesn't mean we're suddenly out,
no, because we
$1 million.
may choose not to hire anybody. Okay?
Right. Well, yeah.
So we still have some time. This is just approving.
Not really.
This process.
No.
I mean, we're not spending any money.
Well, we have to.
No, we're not writing checks tonight. That engages our finance director.
We're gonna write checks before the bond goes.
Yeah,
Right.
it would be before.
This is an advance, you pay someone advance. The voters will not vote until April.
Yeah.
So we've
So
made
we're
it,
approving a concept or a process, but not the detail within it. We're still.
we approved the initiation of a process to hire someone who will then come before us and we'll select just like we did these and then agree to terms, which would be a paid in advance amount. I believe that as we go through that process, that if we say, we don't see our guy or gal here,
Any of the three or whatever we don't like.
but we just have to be realistic that if we're assembling and then re-engaging Piper Sandler for our finance piece, which depends on which option we choose, all of those things are converging to, so that's why we want to be, that, and I'm sorry, I did not mean that in a condescending way. Like, that's not how I didn't mean understanding, I meant, that's not how I meant it.
But I would say, to my mind, getting all these pieces converging increases the likelihood of our success. So I don't think that it is a step in the wrong direction. Is there a possibility that the bond will not pass? Sure, there always is that possibility, right? But I think that the more minds we can get working on this in the right direction and have this model working, I think it increases the likelihood that the bond will pass. And so it'll be, hopefully, in retrospect, it'll be a moot point.
Sure.
And who knows, maybe they come in and they say, hey, this is our key, but we won't do it unless we. Yeah.
Well, and we're making a decision. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the voters. So as board members, it's our due diligence. We've agreed to move forward, even if the timing isn't necessarily perfect. I mean, honestly, we wanted to start this 2 years ago and life had different plans. So we're doing everything we can to give the voters the best opportunity to have the most information. They can choose to make an investment in the, I mean, and that'll be up to them.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on. But I have to use the restroom.
Okay.
I'm gonna call a recess before we go to new business, okay? And then we'll be ready for snow day. Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
I was gonna ask. Just holler at us. For new business now, sorry, Megan, it's 8:18. We are ready to review the snow day procedures came up previously.
So my previous districts that I've been in, one of the things we did with snow days in terms of, this was looking at athletics. We would try to make a decision if we saw weather was coming. We try to make a decision by 10 p.m. at night so we can notify families so they can start at the latest, so they can start making plans. But what would happen there is at 10 o'clock, if it was the night before, unless the snow was actually there and it was 6 inches deep at that time, we would send out the message saying, tomorrow athletic directors and coaches will let students know if optional practices will occur in the afternoon. So it was optional at that point. There were times where it came and it was a mess, and so we wound up letting them know no practice. But there was also days where it didn't turn out to be as bad as we thought, and if it's basketball, they could have a shoot around. If it was wrestling, they could come in and they'd open up the weight room and they could lift or they could And so those were some of those discussions that we would have there. If it was the day of, generally we were closing, it was generally no practice. Because if it was so bad that we recognized that morning that we're telling it, we're not gonna have practice. And so what I would like to do here is utilize that procedure, that practice of, we'll let families know by 10 p.m. the night before, with the idea that the next day I would visit with Gary, I would visit with Mike, we'd talk with the principals, find out how the conditions are in the buildings. Last thing I want to do is make that decision that night before and have someone, get hurt in the parking lot on their way in or slip and fall. We have an injury that in that case, or worse, have a student feel pressured to come in to a practice and get an accident on the way in with the roads being dicey. So that's where I would like to have the ability the next day to be able to make that call.
How about for games like that was practice? That was for practice days. How about for like a basketball game?
Basketball game?
Yeah, like a game day.
Or musical.
Yeah.
My thought on that was going through practices there. I would think that if it's playoffs, you definitely want to do your best to make sure that we're continuing with playoffs. With games, I think it's going to be a collaboration with the opponents to find out if they're willing to come. I think there's some conversation there.
My comments on this is just the fact that I would just like, maybe this is wrong terminology, but to remove the handcuffs and allow the flexibility for administration to make prudent decisions and choices based on the conditions.
Right.
Rather than having a district, manual that says we have to do this no matter how much it doesn't make sense. Because sometimes when the decision's made at 5 in the morning with some sleet starting to come down, and it ends at 7:30 or 8, and we decided to cancel school for the day, we're not going to rewind that. Families have already made those choices. But the evening activities of a 6 o'clock varsity game that's getting towards the end of the season that isn't going to get made up, or a musical that's going to miss one night that can't be made up. There's some of these, and I just like that, at noon, all those roads are treated and open, and it would be to go ahead and continue, especially if the other school, in some cases, didn't take the same action, because, within our league, sometimes there's enough distance to Lewisburg that they didn't have that sleep at 5 in the morning and didn't make that call. So I guess the 10 p.m. thing concerns me a little bit. I'd be more supportive of just opening it up to discretion of yours, to be able to make those decisions of whether you cancel school and whether activities make sense or not.
And what you're giving me is a lot of freedom with that decision. And if that's what the board would choose to do, I would take that, but I would want to make sure the decisions that are made are through consultation with their athletic directors, with Rich and Gary, and through Mike, to make sure that we've got the facilities and the grounds.
Would this apply K-12? Or I guess not, maybe to 6-12 or 7-12?
What's that?
Like, would this apply to junior high or just high school, or how would we?
That's what we did in my prior experience.
District-wide,
Yeah.
So I guess my main concern is transportation. So like if I'm.
And that's where I would become optional. And, if the junior high, they're going to have transportation to get there, then the coaches there would have the ability to say no.
Yeah, and I mean, the premise is that it's not optional for, if it's a high school musical and it's on, if you can get there in time.
Right, and that's where the conversation with the administration, with Gary and Mike would be.
Yeah. Well, that's where your freedom comes in, if it's the classic stuff, the classic Kansas winter, where it's freezing and sleeting and then 70 at the afternoon.
I think there's going to be black and white and gray days, and I think you're just going to have to be safe on the gray days.
And I would tell you.
Right now, we have some black, meaning it should be closed, and the white where it doesn't make any sense to anybody involved that we're not, but yet we're handcuffed by the current policy of school was canceled, so we have to cancel everything else.
And I appreciate the latitude that would provide, but I want to make sure that I'm not making those decisions in a bubble. I would leverage our leadership to do that.
I guess I'm just not sure we're not making 3 more problems trying to solve one, you know, like, you know what I mean, like, I see the intent here, like, we want to make sure the kids have opportunities and practice and play games and do whatever else, but I'm just thinking if some kid lives out in Franklin County and they have to figure, and it's 7th grade, has to figure out a way to get down there to go to their basketball game that they've been looking forward to, but all their peers in town get to make it to it. I mean, I think we'd have an obligation to provide transportation so that we get out there. But then also, like, I don't want to call up the bus driver and say, you gotta pick up 3 kids that, you know, on the west side of campus, or the district, we get them. But yeah, it's a hard one, 'cause it does seem silly, like, if there's no snow on the ground.
I guess I
you know?
don't, yeah, I wouldn't feel that would be happening very much in this situation, because that would be more in that gray. I mean, I think it's more of the example I just gave, where it started sleeting and the roads are wet and treated and there is no issue and nobody's gonna have any problems getting in. If there's gonna be problems getting in, then those are the times we just go ahead and stick with what we had. I mean, if we're not gonna be able to, you know, same thing with the musical. If the kids can't get in to be in it, then we don't want the families coming in either, so we would just
And
cancel it.
that's where the conversations with the other leaders would help.
I think it impacts 3 or 4, maybe year by year, maybe it's different, but it's not going to be a very frequent thing. But when it does happen, I know as a parent and for my kids as participants, it's been pretty kind of mind-boggling to all of us, and it's been a very easy reaction from the admin team because it's a policy and there's nothing they can do about it no matter how much they disagree with it. So I just think it's something we should consider giving them more flexibility.
So Kelly, let me ask you just, I'm trying to visualize this because I don't want to create a situation where schools close, schools canceled, right? But then people are asking, well, they don't know what the situation is, practices or games or musicals or something else. Would you be comfortable with a policy that the default would be if school is closed, it means that other school events like practices and games and those kinds of things would be canceled unless there was a change in the weather, so there would be an option that we could always have those events, right? But the assumption would be,
right,
school's closed,
it's
that means that everything else is closed as well, unless you hear otherwise.
Right.
So the
Unless
people
you
are
heard-
at home going, oh, well, school's closed, but there may be a game tonight, that's still an option, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the way it's gonna be 80% of the time.
Right,
I think
okay.
there's gonna be those 1 or 2 out of 10 or 12 or whatever the percentage is. It's a low number, but there's gonna be those few times where it makes sense for everybody involved, and we're not creating a hardship or a safety hazard. And those would be, that's those 1 or 2 times that I think would be, you know, worth our time in allowing them to have that freedom.
Just have that option.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think it is important to think through though, if someone's only transportation to school is through the school bus, and that's their mode of transportation, and to Chris's point that we are cognizant of students who need support getting.
And we deal with that throughout every activity with holiday practices. I mean, everybody that participates in to my knowledge of every extracurricular that my kids have been in, there are times where it is not a bus opportunity. I mean, and in those times, if a kid can't, the coaches and people that are involved are understanding, you know, or even around the holidays, if you have a family celebration. I mean, those are just times where practices are missed or events are missed.
Yeah, they're allowed to off.
Yeah, I mean, it is extracurricular activities we're talking about, so it's not, you know.
Other discussion? Listen, I get it. One time school was called off and I took my 2nd grade rec team to the park so we could practice because everything was melted by then, but we couldn't get into the school. So I get what you're saying. But at the same time, you know, with the latitude and the flexibility to make decisions, what I want to make sure that we are all clear on, if that's what I'm hearing, is that yes, we want flexibility, but also it's the superintendent's call. It's not our call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This frames it a little bit differently. Part of the thing about black and white is because my black and white might be somebody else's gray. What I think might be I mean, I was one of those crazy people. Hey, kids, if you want to come, there's literally no snow on the ground. Let's meet at the park. We're having practice, So I totally get that. But I don't think our intention is to make anything more complicated for you. It's just the opposite in conjunction with your staff. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Whoa, that scared me. I was like, I was paying attention.
Best motion ever.
No, it wasn't.
I'd like to make a motion that
Kelly
we,
did it, yeah.
provide the flexibility for our superintendent to allow activities that are safe, on snow days. Or inclement weather days, I guess, it's not just snow, but if we close for inclement weather, that there is the option to still hold activities.
Okay.
Kelly has moved, Phil has seconded to, in cases of inclement weather, to provide the superintendent with the flexibility to make determinations about other school-related activities. Is that, okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 5-1. All right. ESSER website compliance. This is going to be sort of a tag team with Mr. Dodge, and our fabulous district nurse, Lisa Patrick, is here. Sorry, it's 8:30. But we have some compliance issues that we need to address.
So as part of the ESSER 3 application, we have, there's a piece on there where you have to keep your return to school plan active. Every 6 months, you want to review it, refresh it. And so to make sure that we're still in that sense, what, in my conversation with Lisa, what we've done is we've taken the practices that we utilize for the start of the school year, and I've updated that document. The letter that we sent on to families has become that practices document that I have added to our board docs, and if agreeable to the board, we can add that to our plan. We'll just keep that as a running document. Every 6 months we'll be looking at things, and as things change, in terms of how things look 6 months from now, that'll be reflected there too. That just makes sure that we've got everything in place, so we can continue to draw down funds through ESSER 3 through 2024. Lisa, did you want to piggyback on that with regards to the grant?
Yeah. So we received our certificate of approval today for the KDHE Test to Know grant. And it's a large grant, covers all the testing supplies for the school year, increased staffing for testing, and increased student care, equipment, and other supplies, and then education opportunities for our health services staff. And so kind of, I think we included in board docs the K through 12 guidance from KDHE. So with that, and then the guidelines for the grant, we kind of came up with our plan for currently, right now, for the school year. And we've had 4 days to give it a really good trial run. So everything's working well. We've got several positive cases in the district, but it's been running pretty smoothly. So with a positive case, we still report that to the health services department. We continue to post that on the website as we have, as we did last year. For a positive case, the case is home for 5 days, and as long as symptoms have improved, they can return to school for the second 5 days with a mask. And then, let's see, we also notify parents and guardians by email that there's a positive case in the classroom. And then all classmates and teammates are considered potential close contacts, is what they're calling it now. They're just kind of making it a broader range and calling it passive contact tracing. They're just kind of, in this next phase, they're just kind of making things, I think, a little simpler for, for everybody in the schools, especially. As far as those close contacts, families need to monitor for symptoms at home. There is testing available if they'd like for their student to be tested during their quarantine period. We're offering 2 days during that 10-day period, and we've suggested day 3 and day 7, kind of falling in that range. We will also have lots of home antigen tests available that we can send home with families this year. We just placed an order today for those, and so that'll take a lot of that off the staff too. You know, if a family would like to have those tests at home and test on the days that they choose, you know, they're welcome to. And we don't even need to know what the results are, you know, unless it's positive. If it's negative, great, just keep coming to school, keep doing what you're doing. Let's see, I think that covers about everything. Masking is encouraged for potentially close contacts too. We did have 2 cases, 2 classrooms today that reached a level. One had 3 positives in the class, one ended up with 7 positives in the class over the last 4 days, and the health department recommended that those classrooms masked for 10 days, and that'll end August 31st for both of those classrooms.
Which school is that?
One at the IC and one at the PC.
So they're all together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we sent that email out late this afternoon to parents that it's recommended. Okay. Any questions? Nope.
Are we doing the dashboard again this year?
Yes.
We're just not emailing out the daily updates or something.
Right. Yeah, parents that just want to look at the website, you know, more than welcome to.
Any other questions?
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Board member input, co-op report.
It's been a while since we had our meeting. But I think across the co-op, we have 26 or 27 new certified staff members that we welcomed, like, I think, August 1st, right here in this room. It's great to see you. I think currently we're maybe fully staffed. Might be one position down, but okay. Besides that, the only update for you guys is that our self-contained program for students with extreme emotional and behavioral disabilities have been relocated from Eudora Middle School and Elementary School over to the what's called
West Resource
Center. So it's that far western elementary building there, which serves as our administrative center and some of their credit recovery programs too. So I gave the tour at this point, but I hope to next couple weeks to drop in there and see how things are going. That's been quite the kerfluffle to get that hooked over there. A lot of logistics to move over there, but thanks to the Eudora board and their maintenance group for getting it all together for us. So, anything else I'm missing from that?
No, I'm glad you can remember what happened in that piece.
I keep the agenda right here. I got notes from like, what does that mean by that?
I was there.
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, miscellaneous. At our July work session, there was a request to look at our agenda draft review process. So that is item A under miscellaneous. So to follow up with that, just wanted to bring that back to your attention. If you want to make a change, you've had time to think about it. If you don't want to make a change, that's fine. But I wanted to make sure we circled back to it because it's something that did come up as a potential change. Okay. All right, you had your chance. If you want to labor over emails with agenda creation, you're no. Okay. You know, if it comes up and we want to revisit it again in the future, feel free. Just so you guys know, though, just procedurally, and I've mentioned this, and if I haven't said it in a group setting, I want to make sure that it's clear. Anything that comes up that's, you know, in those in-between meeting things, I always make sure
to tell the vice president. So if I'm in a car wreck and I can't be here and I don't have the purple folder, it's important that somebody else knows about, and that always occurs. So if that helps just kind of know coverage, comfort level, I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Okay. All right. Moving on, the superintendent evaluation process. And you'll see our goal setting document is also attached there. Those things from our work session are kind of one and the same. We created our sets of goals, our team characteristics, our board expectations, superintendent expectations, all the work that we did around that with each category of using our strategic plan. And you have the goal setting PDF attached for your reference. But the 4 areas: preparing students for success, supporting the needs of students and staff, the operational effectiveness, and the engagement in school and school activities, all the things that we worked on that came under that. This was the document that is, based on the bricks of the strategic plan that was then used with Superintendent Dodge and Dr. Britton Hart to develop a draft for a superintendent evaluation tool. Now, we'll discuss that more specifically in executive session, so you'll know that's coming. That's why that's not attached here. I have that to give you here in a little bit. But just so that you understand or are aware of the process, everything that came from that evaluation tool came from this, which was our work that was based on that. So just to kind of give you the briefest possible recap of what those meetings and that process looked like, so that you know how did we get from point A to point Z, okay? With the evaluation process for the superintendent, that's different than how we've done it in the past. In the first 2 years, we will do that twice a year and not just once, which is also why the tool that we use should reflect a different approach, okay? So we'll get into that more in executive session, but I did want to make sure you guys were briefed on that work that happened. Mr. Dodge, do you have anything you want to add to that in terms of process?
No, I thought the process itself was to develop this was a fun evening as we did it, and it's given me some really good action steps in terms of what I think I can do to help promote the vision that you set.
Will this culminate in a vision or mission statement in the end?
It could.
I mean, because we would want our vision statement or mission statement to align with.
Well,
right.
And that was kind of the point of this, was to help draw some of that out. I mean, if that's an endeavor we want to take on, then that's
well,
certainly.
and I don't know if it's necessarily us or the district, personnel. I just was wondering if that had been discussed.
Yes, it was discussed as part of setting up the work session with, oh my gosh, I just glitched.
Dr. Hart.
Dr. Hart, and I repeated myself. I don't know if anybody caught that. Wow. He did mention that, but he still recommended that we do the goal setting process first. Yeah. And then if we wanted to do that, if that's something, an exercise the board wants to take on, we can certainly do that. But that would be kind of a separate exercise from this, but we've got all this to base that from. So think on that, and if we want to tackle some vision and mission statements, let us know. Because it's kind of an ideal time in a lot of ways because of all the other stuff we did. So I
mean, if that's going to live and breathe as part of the district, though, I think it would be really important to have the district people involved in how,
It would be another committee, Susan.
With the
straightest face she said that, I was like.
Well, let's just pretend I didn't say that.
No, don't pretend, because, when you do a new strategic plan, it only makes sense to take a look at those other things. So how about this? Would everyone please revisit our vision and mission statements so that can at least get, since we've done this is so fresh in mind. To Susan's point, it is a good opportunity to take what we've just done and look at that. And then if we want to take that further, if we look at the vision statement, we're like, this is terrible and this doesn't even describe us anymore. So why don't everybody take a look at that and then we can circle back.
Want me to read it to you real quick?
Sure.
It's a one sentence. It's very concise, which is nice. taking our place among the elite, recognized for extraordinary achievement, teacher with purpose, passion, and concern.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the narrative. The mission kind of, I guess, titled Teaching and Learning for Excellence.
Yeah, I like the idea of say this for a little bit and come back to it.
Yeah.
Next month to-
Yeah.
Because I can put them up against the current goals and for target areas and see if there's any pieces I'm missing.
Thanks, Susan. All right. Let's go ahead and move on, if you're all okay with that, to the superintendent's report.
Right. I just wanted to say a few things regarding the start to the school year. Credit to our building principals and the staff for making I'm going to use the term electric energy that was there. I think we got is that a Ric Flair that we got from Mr. Kern as a result of Mr. Brittingham's cheerleading expertise. Was good. The teachers, our new staff that have come in, the 19 new teachers that we've talked about have come in, and they've done some great things. Going through some of the walkthroughs that I've been able to do some of the classrooms, it's cool to see how they meshed well with the students, with their colleagues. It's been a lot of fun. Let's see, today I checked, we have 1,418 students currently enrolled. So that's been a positive thing. I want to wait till September 20th before we start looking at how we are comparatively to previous years and what the trend looks like. But I'm very happy with that number. Having Baker on campus last Thursday was fun. It's the cheerleaders that were greeting some of the preschoolers who were walking in for their first day. Some really bought into that. Others, it was a little bit overwhelming. But overall, the kids had a great time with that.
We only had 2 cry.
What's that? You only had 2 cry. Only 2. But it was a lot of fun. We had the Baker mascot over at the IC, which was pretty cool. My son, when I pulled into the parking lot, the expression on his face when he saw that the Baker Wildcat was there was just pretty cool. Over the junior high and high school, I wasn't able to get there during their arrival time, but it was pretty cool to see those athletes there in those buildings. My daughter talked about going through the athletes over at the junior high. So that was fun. And Baker, I had a good meeting with Dr. Murray last week. I think we've got some really cool things, some cool opportunities that might be there through some of the conversations that we had. So it was just a great start to the school year from the building perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. All right, at this time, we're going to transition to our executive session time. So for our first one, I move we enter into executive session with Superintendent Dodge and Mr. Elliott to discuss personnel matter, pursuant to the exception under comma for non-elected personnel, and the open meeting will resume at 8:57. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 6-0.
Thanks for saving me the walk.
Artificial.
I'm ready. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm ready.
Okay. I think we have to technically wait until 8:57, but I'm just going to go ahead and start the motion.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That way we're
So then you can actually get
maximizing our time. All right, I move we enter into executive session with Superintendent Dodge to discuss personnel matter pursuant to the exception under COMA for non-elected personnel. And then the open meeting will resume. Let's see, it's 8:56, it was 8:57, and you wanted 10 minutes. So let's just say 9:08 or 9:07.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Kelly, while you're waiting,
Motion
do you want,
carries.
were there several things that need multiple signatures?
Yep.
And they don't have to do it right now, but.
This one's
maybe take the
already, and I was
opportunity.
going to do this one next.
No darting out,
Yep,
please.
we're multitasking.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. All right.
You could start walking slowly and then.
Yep, and then we'll be there because it's 8:56.
He's got long legs.
Yep. This is the resolution.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I see. For this one, do you need Baldwin for that? Okay. I move we enter into executive session to discuss a student matter pursuant to the justification under Tacoma regarding student privacy and confidentiality. And with Mr. Dodge, and the open meeting will resume at 9:13. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries 6-0.
we enter into executive session with, yeah, we've got a couple more, with Mr. Dodge to discuss the evaluation tool draft. And the open meeting will resume at 9:19. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Megan, here's the signed. Didn't know. We're moving to enter into executive session to discuss the superintendent evaluation tool pursuant to the justification under coma for non-elected personnel, not with him this time, and the open meeting will resume at 9:25.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Motion carries 6-0. Thanks.
Thank you.
So final motion, if you guys are comfortable noting the changes that we talked about, or the tweaks, really, not changes, we would need to approve that as an evaluation tool. Okay? Sure.
Sir, I motion we accept the superintendent evaluation tool with modifications as discussed.
Who was that? Was it you? Okay. Phil moved and Chris seconded to approve the superintendent evaluation tool with the modifications as discussed. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. We also have the personnel report to approve.
Motion to approve the personnel report.
That was, wow. He finished first.
Okay. Okay. Phil moved and Kelly seconded to approve the personnel report as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand. And now we're ready for adjournment. Hey, the last meeting was 17 minutes, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So just please remember that.
This meeting is
Right.
only 17 minutes.
Chris just moved, we adjourned. Is there a second?
Second.
And Phil has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Meeting adjourned 9:27. Thanks, guys.